Hey guys, it's coming out for The Flash, Season 4, Episode 6, When Harry Met Harry, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. I've actually really been enjoying the season so far, especially because they've really been embracing the more lighthearted, sillier tone that they've been demonstrating throughout the season, and this episode continued that. Now, I do think this episode did show, that the show might be going a little too far with that concept, but I still really did enjoy this episode. I'll get into what I mean by that, but we're just getting into it right now, which we start off this episode, we see at Jitters, Barry and Ralph are getting coffee, and once again, Ralph is just such a fun character. Harley Sawyer is doing a really great stuff. You can tell he's having a lot of fun, and he makes sure to remind Barry that he crushed his life, and a mugger holds them up, and Barry tells Ralph that muggers are like superhero one-on-one. The mugger complains they're not paying attention to him, and Ralph says they'll get back to me. Finally shoots Ralph, the bullet bounces back and hits the mugger. The mugger shoots Ralph again, the bullet bounces back into him. Barry insists on taking the man to the hospital, and a lot of this episode is Barry training Ralph, and you can tell they're very much trying to replace Kid Flash with Elastic Man, with Elongated Man, but for me, it really seems to be working so far, honestly. I like the dynamic between Barry and Ralph far more than I ever did between Barry and Wally. I just never really liked that dynamic all that much. Wally, honestly, was really annoying, and he was very much a whiny crybaby at points, and Ralph really isn't like that, and I actually really do like the dynamic between these two. So we then see Mechanic. She talks to Thinker, who agrees to take the long way, tells her to continue, and she says the Team Flash may discover his identity early on, and warns if he's miscalculated, then things could go wrong. And right off the bat, we see the show is really trying to change things up, because the typical formula for the Flash is that we have a villain in like little glimpses throughout the season, and it's not till like halfway towards the third act of the third half of the season where they actually unveil the identity. But this episode, we already walk away knowing the identity of the Thinker, and I really like that. It provides a much stronger, different narrative. I mean, it really shows that this season could go in any sort of direction. I really do love that. Thinker knows it will end with his victory, having calculated to the last decimal point, and Mechanic walks off, and I'm really liking more getting of the Thinker so far, let me just say that. But at Star Labs, Barry finds Cisco sleeping, and Keiynan and Harry are also worn out from an all-nighter, and Harry points out that they have nothing but his search to go on and figures that they need more brain power. So Ralph is glad to help. He accidentally triggers the computers, and Harry shuts it down, says that he should call his friend. He insists he's made smart new friends and goes to call them, and Barry figures that the other passengers are connected to DeVoe's plan. So at first, like, oh shit, Harry actually found some friends. That's really cool, but basically he realizes that these passengers are in fact connected to DeVoe's plan. So Ralph does remember the other ones on the plane besides him, and Vibe can't vibe them because his energy actually bounces back, and Keiynan suggests they use hypnosis to recover Ralph's memories, and I like this. I like that Vibe can't, vibe on Ralph. It's actually really cool. We haven't really seen that happen before, and again, it takes the show in a more unpredictable direction, and I really do like that. So Iris and Barry take Ralph to Dr. Finkel to hypnotize him. We get this really humorous scene where they claim that he's trying to remember information for a case. She hypnotizes him in a matter of seconds, and Finkel takes him back to his memories. He remembers Weeper and some women, and he knows their measurements but doesn't see their faces, and remembers one woman who is wearing a leather jacket with a bison pattern on it, and Finkel snaps Ralph out of it, realizing that Ralph is honestly kind of despicable, and he really is not good towards women. He looks at women in a very, very unfavored way, to say the least. But that night, the woman, Minna Chaitin, she's standing outside of a museum, and when a man comes out with a case, he hears a growling sound. He goes to his car. He sees nothing but a stone statue of a tiger being transported, and then someone grabs him and yanks him away. And this is where we get to one of the lower points of the episode. This episode was, like I said, relatively fun, but the villain definitely was not one of the high points. We'll get into that in a little bit. But the next morning, the police are called to the crime scene. His case and hand are missing. There's no ID. And Barry points out to Joe that the animal would have to weigh over a ton. He notices the tiger statue nearby, and when Barry checks his teeth, he finds blood on them. So at Star Labs, Cisco brings in food for Henry's confab, and Henry then calibrates the multiverse holoprojector, and he explains that his friends are actually from other Earths. So we realize that all of his friends are actually different incarnations of Harrison Wells. We see the Earth 12 Harrison Wolfgang morning, Wells appears. He doesn't see the point of saving everything from Earth 47, his publishing tycoon. Lothario Wells, who is at his mansion on dress-up night. The last one to appear is Wells 2.0 from Earth 22, which is a post-apocalyptic world. And Wells the Grey also shows up, and Harry apologizes for the bad connection. And here's where we get to one of my fears for the season. It's one thing to take the show in a silly, goofy direction. It's another to just make everything completely cheesy and like a comic book, because that's really what I think this show is kind of running the risk of. Something like this, it runs the risk of making the show so corny that it feels almost like you can't take it seriously. Like it's just trying so hard to be funny. And this subplot very much to feel the way. And it's not because it wasn't funny, because it was. But it felt more like these characters were just here to be funny and not like actual characters. They didn't feel like characters to me. They didn't organically fit into this narrative. The other Wells, the reason they've worked so well is they've each had their own identity. And these characters, they just felt very one joke. Like one of them, he's just talking in this voice all the time, and he talks like this, and there's nothing really all that funny except when you talk like this. I mean, there's just nothing, after a while, there's not really anything that funny about that. The other one, he's like missing an eye, and he complains about that throughout the whole episode. The other one, like I said, he's like really rich, and he's in, dress up and everything. So these three Wells, they just didn't really do much of anything for me. I understand what they were trying to do, but I just didn't particularly enjoy it all that much. They didn't really stand out to me, unfortunately. And Tom Cavanagh still did a really good job here, but they felt less like characters and more just like these beings that were meant to be there for comedic relief, and that's really it. But basically, Cisco talks to Harry privately, says that he didn't mean that Harry should make friends with himself. Harry doesn't really see the problem because, I mean, they're still his friends, and Cisco agrees to give the Council of Wells a chance, and Wolfgang tells Cisco to leave. The other two agree, and Wells 2.0 says that he ate his Cisco. Cisco makes a quick exit, and Keiynan analyzes the statue stone sample, says it's filled with traces of dark matter, and they figure the meta can bring inanimate objects to life. And Iris says that rifles can blow up statues. Joe arrives, says the victim was actually Jim Fox, an auctioneer at Weatherby's, and he was transporting a Native American artifact. And Iverson sees a bison necklace along the items, figures that must have been the target, and it was separate into 3 pieces. One piece was in the case, the second location is unknown, and the third is in the hands of a private collector named Christoph Banks. So Cisco has prepared a suit for Ralph, explains that it's malleable, and Ralph doesn't care how it works. Cisco shows him the suit, he tells Ralph to wear it, and needless to say, Ralph isn't really impressed by it. It really is probably one of the cheesiest looking suits that we've had, but again, the show really does embrace it, and I honestly really do like it. I don't care the CGI isn't really all that great on a long game, man. It works. For me, it works. I think it's silly, and I just think it works here. So that night, Christoph is entertaining Minna and boasting about his collection, and she explains that she's writing a book about Sioux artifacts, and her bloodline is actually Sioux. So Christoph shows her a peace pipe, and Minna says it's a sacred gift for prayer, tells him that he's destroying a holy artifact. She says that she's Black Bison, animates a nearby suit of armor, has it choke Christoph while she grabs the second part of the necklace, and Flash and Elongated Man arrive. Black Bison has a suit, knock Elongated Man back. She runs, sending the suit after Christoph, and Flash then vibrates him inside of it, destroys it, and Elongated Man complains that Flash let Black Bison get away. And again, I just didn't really care about this villain. I didn't really feel like she had that strong. Her motivation was definitely clear, but she just felt very one-note to me. I didn't really care that much about her, and that's something that the Flash still seems to have a bit of a problem with. So back in the lab, Keiynan confirms that the same meta animated the suit. They figure they can only animate effigies, and Iris identifies Minna, and she's a professor of cultural anthropology who became an activist and lost her job 6 months ago, and she was trying to reclaim several Sioux artifacts, and Barry figures that they need to find the third piece of the necklace before she does. So once they leave, Barry tells Ralph that saving Christoph's life was the most important thing, and Ralph figures that capturing the bad guy is more important, and wonders why Barry couldn't do both at super speed. Why wasn't he able to capture him? So The Wells are then arguing when Cisco comes in, asks how they're doing. Harry says they can't agree on the entire mythology after 24 days. No matter what they do, they just can't agree on it. So Lothario returns without pants. Wells 2.0 wants to interrogate every DeVoe they can find with a blowtorch. Harry says it isn't working, and he shuts off the holo projector. So I was glad that this was short-lived. I was glad this didn't last the whole episode, because it just got annoying after a while. It didn't really do much of anything for me. But Iris tells Barry and Ralph that the Central City Museum is transporting the third piece to a secure facility, and she's tracking it via GPS. So Black Bison then finds the armored truck and animated the dummy of a caveman inside. He knocks out the guards and hands over the necklace piece. Flash and Elongate Man arrive. Minna says the necklace belongs to her people and that something inside of her changed for the better. So she animates the caveman, which tosses Flash away while Flash counterattacks it. Minna tries to drive away. Elongate Man grabs her car, tries to hold it in place, while the caveman knocks Flash into an electrical pole, breaking the superhero's leg. The power lines fall and Flash yells to Elongate Man to rescue the nearby civilians. And when Elongated Man lets go of the car, Black Bison crashes into another car, and he very quickly saves this little girl's life. This little girl's very close to getting crushed by this telephone pole, but we'll get into that at the end of the episode. But Flash recovers enough to help a girl shocked by the cables, confirms she's still waiting. He then turns and glares at Elongated Man, and at the hospital, the doctors tell Barry and Ralph that the girl Laura is okay, but she is lucky to be alive. She was very close to that not being the case, but when Barry tells Ralph they need to talk, a guilt-stricken Ralph tells him not to, and he actually walks away. And it's not because he's not into the idea, it's mainly because he sees how dangerous this is, and he sees what this can really do to people. And I really did like the arc that Ralph went through in this episode. I can understand if someone thinks it was a little bit rushed, but for me, it really did work. I really love where they took Ralph here, and for me, like I said, that was easily the strongest part of this episode. So Harry's been working on calculations when Cisco comes in. The older man says to forget the council and admits that he hates them because they're like him, and Cisco points out that Harry is essentially complaining about himself, and he points out they all have parts of the personality. He says it's all about Harry, and Harry doesn't really have a high opinion of himself. So Cisco points out that no one will like Harry if he doesn't like himself, and points out that the other Wells helped when they were asked. And he tells Harry that sometimes he's a hero, and says if he wants to make the council work, then he has to treat all themselves with compassion, and that's simply not what he's doing. And it's mainly because, again, the lack of self-esteem that he really has for himself. So soon, he assembles the council and apologizes. He says that he knows they all want to work separately, but explains they have to work as friends. He finds things to compliment about all of them. They start apologizing to each other as well, and once they do, he reconvenes the council and they start putting together a predictive algorithm. So again, I just didn't really care that much about this subplot. I understand what they're trying to do with Harry, but the council just really didn't work for me. But we then get this great scene between Barry and Ralph, where he finds Ralph in his office, and Ralph says that he knows he screwed up. And we see Ralph, he's filled with a lot more, sort of regrets, and a lot more sort of, he's a lot more, kind of on himself for this, and we haven't really seen this in Ralph yet. Ralph, we've seen, he's been kind of selfish, and he's been blaming Barry for everything, but he's actually taking the blame for this, and I really did love this. He's looking at files of past cases, says when he was a PI, he didn't have to worry about little girls in hospitals, but now, he didn't see what happened afterward, and he got by without caring about anyone. Now he has to care about a whole city because of that. So, Barry tells him the most important job of his life, and says that he didn't always handle it well. All he can do is the best that he can, and when that's not enough, he learns from the people around him, and he figures that Ralph has the makings of a hero, but warns that there will be bad days, and not everything's going to go just right. And I like that Barry told him this, and this is the Barry that I want to see. I don't want to see the Barry that blames himself for everything. I don't want to see the Barry that's brooding. I want to see this more hopeful side of Barry, and that's what I really loved here. I like seeing Barry as the trainer. I like seeing Barry tell Ralph that, some days are going to be better than others, and he offers to be there for Ralph if he needs someone to lean on. He reminds Ralph that Laura will be okay, and they got the bad guy. So again, I really like the scene. I like seeing the bond between Barry and Ralph. I'm interested in seeing really where this is going to go throughout the rest of the show this season. I definitely really enjoying it so far. So at the station, Officer Wilcox takes Minna to a cell. They remember arresting her. She grabs his name tag from him. He shoves her into the cell and uses the pin to pick the handcuffs. And in the lobby, an officer is demonstrating a tactical dummy wearing a new armored suit. The dummy knocks the officer in charge, grabs his gas grenade launcher and fires it. The other officers collapse, choking. The dummy then goes to the cells and frees Minna. She says it's time to collect what is theirs. And Barry and Ralph then return to Star Labs. Iris tells them that Minna got free, and they know the necklace pieces are at the museum. So Barry tells Ralph to suit up, and they go to the museum. Black Bison finds the 2 necklace pieces. She takes them and puts them on, and Flash and Elongate Man arrive, tells her to put the necklace down. Black Bison insists she's taking the necklace back to the Sioux and animates a T-Rex skeleton. Elongate Man then stretches up to the balcony while Flash speeds up the skeleton's tail. It knocks him away. A security guard arrives. Elongate Man confronts Black Bison, who turns the skeleton on the guard. Elongate Man then jumps into its jaws to stop it, wraps up its teeth, and again, I like the way the show is playing up on this. The fact that he can literally get into people's skin and he can use that to his advantage, and he can subdue them in that way. So Flash cuts off Black Bison as she runs. She points out all the things she can animate. He figures that she won't because there's one thing that she cares about more than vengeance. He tosses a rare pot into the air, handcuffs Black Bison with power dampeners. She tries to catch it, then catches the pot as it falls, and they take Black Bison back to Elongate Man, congratulate him. The skeleton has reverted to normal, and Elongated Man tells it to stay. So later at Star Labs, Barry tells Ralph that Joe called to say that Minna's locked up at Iron Heights. The cleanup crew at the museum still hasn't found the necklace, and Ralph suggests that someone might have mailed it back to the Sioux Nation. He asks if Barry's gonna yell at him. Barry says that he isn't for that one, and Ralph figures that Minna's friends and family have been hurt for too long. He figures a superhero's job is to protect him, and Barry invites him for coffee, but Ralph says he has to see a girl, and then leaves. And we get probably my favorite scene in the episode where he goes to the hospital, the little girl Laura, she wakes up, and Ralph is sitting at her bedside. And this is kind of his way of again, he's feeling all that regret, and it's kind of him taking that weight off his shoulders and really kind of making up for it. She says that she's doing better but is bored. Ralph makes sure no one is looking. He stretches his hand into a balloon animal, and this was just a really fun scene. I like seeing him interact with this girl, and I'm looking forward to seeing where Ralph is going. They're really getting this character right so far, and I really hope they continue to do great work with him because I'm really liking this character. But at Star Labs, Cisco tells Joe and Barry the Wells to figure that they're looking for Clifford DeVoe, and Clifford has no social profile. They know where he's hiding. Barry tells Joe they'll handle him, figuring they actually have a chance to get ahead of their enemy, and Mechanic tells Thinker they're about to have guests. Thinker tells her to get ready to greet them, so Joe and Barry go to the front door of the house while Harry is nearby with a gun. Vibe and Frost are at the lab. They're ready to breach in. Barry rings the door. The Mechanic in civilian garb greets them. They ask to talk to DeVoe, and she wonders if her husband's in trouble, and he arrives in a wheelchair and asks how he can be of help, and that is the way this episode ends. So, like I said, guys, really interesting episode, and especially the ending. The ending definitely really takes the season in a whole different direction. And that's something I think we've all really been waiting for. I've said this so many times. The biggest problem with The Flash is that they've just been recycling the same storyline for 3 seasons. What they're doing now, however, is a lot better. First of all, the whole who the Thinker is, that's gone. There is no mystery this season. We already know who he is. Clifford DeVoe, we've already met the villain in plain sight. There is no mystery there. And I already really like that because now we're realizing this villain not only is not going to be a mystery, not only is he not a speedster, but he's operating at a completely different level. And where the season goes is really anyone's guess. And I absolutely love that. I love the unpredictability of the season. I love they're taking things in a different direction. It just really bodes well for the rest of the season. I'm hoping that they really can maintain the quality they have right now. Ralph, like I said, is a character I'm honestly really digging. I think Hardly Sora is doing a really great job. Yes, he's a bit of a womanizer. Yes, he's a bit of a dick at points, but it really seems like him becoming Elongated Man is really starting to change him for the better, and it really is starting to, take him in a different direction and make him realize how important, how much of a valuable he can be to the team, and I honestly really did love that. And that scene with him and that little girl, I really did love. I thought that Hardly Sora, again, he's just doing a really great job channeling the really just hilarity of the character along with the emotion. I think those two things are going hand in hand very well. And I love Barry as his trainer. Like I said, Barry's a lot more hopeful this season. I really do like that. I like that Barry's not just down himself all the time. He's a lot more hopeful, and I'm hoping that we stick in this direction here. As far as things go with Harry, like I said, wasn't a huge fan of the stuff going on with Harry in this episode. The whole thing with the Council of Wells, it really didn't work for me. But the whole thing with Harry starting to maybe have a bit of a crisis where he has very low self-esteem, that I do like. I am looking forward to seeing where he goes. Maybe he's going to do some soul searching. Maybe he's going to realize, how important he really is. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that's really going to go. Like I said, guys, overall, I honestly really did enjoy this episode. There was a lot of stuff going on, great stuff going on here, between stuff going on with the elongated man, as well as everything going on with DeVoe. I thought that stuff was very well done. My biggest problem with this episode, though, is one, the speedster, very forgettable. I really did not care about Black Bison, honestly. I did not care about her as a metahuman. I did not think she was a very strong villain. Two, like I said, the Council of Wells really didn't work for me. Other than that, guys, this was a very solid episode, and I am going to give The Flash Season 4, Episode 6, When Harry Met Harry, a B. So over, guys, from this episode of The Flash, and those guys thought this episode overall, left your thoughts. Like I said, guys, I'm really enjoying the season so far. I think they definitely are on the right track. I just really hope they can maintain this quality. But that's my review. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.
It's so lonely when she's not